guys, today we'll be covering Practice It exercise 8.1 called Quadrant Point. The problem is that add the following method to the point class, public int quadrant, and this class is supposed to return which quadrant of the x and y plane this point object falls in. Quadrant 1 contains all points whose x and y values are both positive. Quadrant 2 contains all points with negative x but positive y. Quadrant 3 contains all points with negative x and y values, and Quadrant 4 contains all points with positive x but negative y. If the point lies directly on the x and/or y axis, return 0. Okay, so we'll start by adding this class, so public int quadrant, and then we'll put the curly braces here, and in between we'll start by identifying quadrant 1. So quadrant 1 is that both x and y values have to be positive, right? So we'll say x is greater than 0 and y is also greater than 0. And then in this case, it will return 1. Okay, and then we'll close that. And then after that, we'll move on to quadrant 2. So we'll say else if, and quadrant 2 says that negative x but positive y. So we'll say x is less than 0 and y is greater than 0, just like that. And then we'll say return 2. Okay, and we'll move on to quadrant 3. So quadrant 3 is that x and y are both negative. So we'll just say else if x is less than 0 and y is also less than 0. And then we'll close that, and then we'll say return 3. And then lastly, going on to quadrant 4. So we'll say else if, and quadrant 4 says that x is positive but y is negative. So we'll say x is greater than 0 and y is less than 0. And then we'll say return 4. And then we'll close that curly brace. And then lastly, it says that if the point lies directly on the x and or y axis, return 0. So we'll just say else return 0. And then we'll just close that. And let me just pull this up. And if we submit that, you should have gotten the correct answer. So that's all for Practice It exercise 8.1 Quadrant Point, and I'll see you guys next time. Thank you.